UFC Nashville. This is the weigh-in recap show, full card predictions and the betting breakdown. Main event, Cory Sandhagen versus Rob Font. We're going to talk about each of the matchups on the card after seeing the fighters on the scales, and also special little segment at the end of the video. I'm also going to drop my prediction for Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. So make sure you guys smash that like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, turn the post notifications on, and make sure to share the video as well. Also note, I'll be live for the entire UFC Nashville card starting at 6 p.m. Eastern time tomorrow. And then assuming the Jake Paul card lines up with the UFC Nashville card, I'll be live as well for the Nate Diaz versus Jake Paul main event. So it's a stacked fight companion tomorrow. Keep it locked in on the channel. And let's get into our first fight of the night. We have Ode Osbourne versus Asu Almabaev. I've been picking Ode Osbourne throughout the week as a dog. I called him as the underdog lock this week, which took a lot of confidence, but it's because I do believe having a good amount of UFC experience, working with champions over at Team Serra-Longo now for Osbourne, is going to have him very prepared for a strong wrestler, but guy who hasn't fought at the highest level in Asu Almabaev, who I'm not overly impressed by. I think Osbourne can beat him. Now, as far as the scales, I want to check them out and see how the fighters looked. I will bring up pictures of the fighters on the scales and the face-off, since every media outlet is over at the Jake Paul fight versus Nate Diaz. You know, they don't have the images loaded up online for me, so I had to dig through, screenshot them myself. So first, let me bring up Ode Osbourne, who I'm riding with as a dog on the scale. You can see he's coming in shape on weight, looking pretty solid. And then on the opposite side, I'll bring Almabaev up, who jumped in, to fight a dangerous guy for his debut. I got to give him respect because Osbourne's been around now for a minute, just beating Charles Johnson last time. Almabaev is shredded. He looks in pretty excellent shape. Now, he's a 29-year-old prospect, 17-2 record. But at the end of the day, 2-year age difference, more UFC experience for Osbourne, a bit of a physicality edge, and you'll see that in just a second when I bring up the face-off. A little bit taller, a little bit longer for Ode Osbourne. I do not anticipate this to be an easy fight for Ode Osbourne, but I will take him by a decision. I'm thinking unanimous decision, 2-1 here, favoring Osbourne. He's able to stop the wrestling onslaught for the most part, outstrike an Almabaev, and get himself a win as an underdog. Let's bring up the odds for the fight. Odds here for the fight, Osbourne plus 164, and then Almabaev upwards of minus 189 here. So I think that minus 145 tag that you're seeing is a mismark. Around minus 200, right? It's closing in on that. Now, as far as Osbourne's method of victory, I am calling decision, but I would, push towards just money lining the underdog. But decision for Osbourne does sit at a plus 450 tag, which is pretty juicy. But at the end of the day, where the confidence lies is on the Osbourne money line. I'll pick him on the judges' scorecards. I'm saying that he beats Almabaev on the cards, and underdog lock comes through, and we ride with a trifecta after this Saturday. Can't wait for this fight. Next fight on the card, short notice fight. Sean Woodson fights Dennis Buzukja, who came in as a replacement opponent. Mad respect to him, taking the fight on like less than a week's notice. Now, a guy like him, 25, training with Aljamain Sterling, Merab Dvalishvili at the Longo Weidman Gym, is in shape and ready. I feel like Sean Woodson, maybe a bit overrated. I do think people have kind of caught on now. I feel like Buzukja beats him. At 22, he had a dog fight with Melsik Bagdasaryan, who's an excellent kickboxer. Now, some years later for Buzukja, he's on a 7-fight win streak. And he's taken on Sean Woodson, who's really long, but honestly doesn't have heavy hands. Decent combos from the outside, but I'm just never overly impressed by him. He's a really thin guy for the weight class, so, a big shot in close by Buzukja could be damaging. And I also see a clear strength advantage for Buzukja too. So I'm thinking Buzukja pulling this one off I feel like decision is surely possible with Woodson. But I mean, Buzukja on the ground, he's going to throw shots. He's got potential for sub. I know he's got some decisions here. And then obviously he's got stoppages in his last 2 against maybe subpar opponents. I don't think it's impossible for him to get a sub on a Sean Woodson in the later rounds. I'm thinking a hard-fought decision is more likely, though. Either way, I like Buzukja to beat him. Now, as far as the scales, I got both fighters, and we'll bring them up on screen here. For certain fights that I felt it was essential to look at the officials, I'll bring them up, and then for some of them, we'll just have the face-off. This is one that I felt was essential because Buzukja did miss weight. At the end of the day, though, he is still in fantastic shape. He doesn't look overly sucked out, but taking a fight on short notice and then buckling in for a hard weight cut and making, near the limit, a not overly bad thing. Now, some people might say, dude, are you overly worried about the weight cut? Could it be a factor? Sure. It's just Sean Woodson isn't like this crazy, imposing your will type of style. He'll fight at a controlled pace and box from the outside. I think Buzukja's going to be the one trying to close the gap, make it more of an MMA fight. Now, as far as Sean Woodson, I'll bring him up too, and we can look at him. He looks pretty typical Sean Woodson. He's a very thin guy, man. He's, over 6 foot. Now, what is he, 6'2"? At 145? That's just incredibly thin for the weight. And I just don't love to see that much height on a guy at that weight class. Not because I'm jealous that he's tall as fuck. No, it's because I think that when you drain yourself down to be so skinny, you're limiting your punching power, you're limiting your punch resistance, and you're limiting your grappling strength too. So I think that's a bit of a big factor here. Now, as on the opposite side, Buzukja, more of a normal heighted guy for the weight class of featherweight. We got the face off here. I'll shrink it down a little bit to make him look more normal. See the height difference. Hard fight. I'm going to say Buzukja pulls it off on short notice over Sean Woodson, who at the end of the day, I guess I just don't have a ton of faith in at this point either. Note something too, Buzukja 25 with more fights than the 31-year-old. That's a positive factor. Taking some time to build, going on a nice 7-fight tear. He won on the Contender Series too. He ultimately didn't get signed last time out, but he's here now, and I think he can beat Sean Woodson. So give me Buzukja for the win. Plus 153 for him on the side of Sean Woodson, minus 178. Buzukja by a decision. I'm not saying play it, but I'll just read it off. Plus 250. Could see it going longer. There's definitely a chance of a stoppage, but Woodson doesn't have a ton of power. So I think if there is a finish, Buzukja by sub is possible. Him to win by sub is all the way up at plus 1100. That's kind of weird to me. I think it's possible that he would catch a sub. I mean, he trains with Aljo. I like his ground skills. Could go and win a decision too. Money line, your best side, but I'm surprised to see how wide the sub line is. And I mean, ground and pound, obviously then we can get into that's possible too. And that's like plus 700-ish. But money line, the A side. Buzukja for the win over Sean Woodson in our second fight on the card. Let's get to the third fight. We have Jake Hadley versus Cody Durden. Durden taking this fight on a bit of short notice. He was originally supposed to fight next month against Bruno Silva. Still, I think, booked for that fight as far as we are at right now. Yeah, I mean, he's going to have a bit of recovery time, but still booked to fight Bruno Silva. I think that Cody Durden's going to beat Jake Hadley. Hard-fought decision, pretty back-and-forth fight. I like the wrestling of Durden and the pace. I know Hadley is a guy that can box fairly well and a little bit unorthodox. And he can control a decent pace and he's scrambly on the ground. I just think Durden can match him on the feet and exceed his game on the floor and in the clinch too. So that's a big factor. Give me Cody Durden for the win by a hard fought. The judge's decision. I mean, I'm thinking unanimous 29-28 again here. Maybe it ends up being a split. Either way, I got Durden as the man with his hand raised at the end of it as far as the scales, not the face-off just yet. We'll pull up the scales first. Durden's on point on weight. I mean, he's not shredded or anything, but he's there. He looks like normal Durden does. And then we'll bring up Hadley, who actually he needed to be covered to, get on the scale. So, it was a bit of a harder cut. He looks okay here, but his face definitely looks more sucked in than a Cody Durden, more of a challenge on the weight cut. Ultimately, could that favor a Cody Durden as we get into the later stages? His opponent maybe having a more difficult weight cut than him. and then Durden able to capitalize with the wrestling in the third round as well, I see him stealing the fight. I'm going Durden for the win and expect a big X factor being the wrestling skills. You can see the face off there between these two. Very similar frames, a little bit leaner for Hadley, but ultimately guys are built similar as far as their statures, height and reach. A little bit of a reach favorite towards Hadley, who's got 3 inches in the arm length. But ultimately we're riding with Cody Durden to pull it off, going dog. I got 3 dogs in a row to start the card. That's crazy now because the bout order switch and then, short notice addition with Woodson, Buzukja. Plus 173 for Durden. Hadley's 2-1, minus 203. Cody Durden money line intrigues me. The over 2.5 intrigues me at minus 125 too because he's a hard guy to put away. Durden by decision at plus 275. What I like the most here is that over 2.5 or the underdog Durden side. I'm going Durden for the W by a decision and expect the wrestling to be, a major factor to him winning this fight here. Next fight on the card, Billy Quarantillo versus Damon Jackson. I expect a pretty back and forth fight between these two with Billy Quarantillo. He gets it done, but it's not going to be, without some challenge because Damon Jackson's dog tough. Now, I think Jackson would be better in the clinch. As far as in the striking realm, I like Quarantillo. And as far as the jiu-jitsu, I think Quarantillo, at the very least, matches Damon Jackson's skill sets there. So I see Billy Q as the more athletic guy also pulling this one off. I think decision is possible, but the fact that I'm thinking there's a lot of decisions early, I think this one could break the decision streak, and Billy Q maybe by a later TKO is, more of a volume puncher with Billy Q. He doesn't have that one-shot thud. Now I'll pull up the fighters here and let's check them out. Now the weigh-ins for this fight were without issue, and I don't think either guy had any thing to note, so I did not bring up, the actual official weigh-ins. Rather, I just brought up the face-off so you can see these guys squaring up before they throw down. I think Billy Q's got a real good chance to win. If he is to get a stoppage, I think third round TKO. I'm thinking Billy Q TKO in the later stages. More of a volume TKO. It's not a one-shot drop, but accumulation of damage, and Damon Jackson could get stopped here. I'm going Billy Q for the W. He pulls it off against Damon Jackson in a back-and-forth fight, though. Like, I know that Damon Jackson's dog tough, but I think Billy Q's just crisper, more athletic, more violent, and just better with the striking and capable to stop grappling and, maybe even have success of his own. I mean, he's a jiu-jitsu black belt being Billy Q. Minus 172, Billy Q. Jackson plus 147. As far as Billy Q to win it, TKO plus 165. What's third round TKO? Plus 675 is not as good as I thought it would be. I'm thinking second or third round TKO. I'll read off second too. Plus 600. Billy Q, later TKO. He gets the win over Damon Jackson on the card. And let's keep running up. Next fight, we have Jeremiah Wells versus Carlston Harris. I've been picking Jeremiah Wells by knockout all week long. Carlston Harris is a little bit sloppy in the striking, though, he's still a dangerous guy. He's definitely competent everywhere. He's a slappy puncher who leaves openings, whereas Jeremiah Wells has the one-shot knockout power, and he also is a imposing physical presence. I think he's stronger than Carlston Harris. He's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. I think that Jeremiah Wells is going to be offensively better on the mat and dictates where the fight goes. Being in the clinch and controlling is not something that's foreign to Jeremiah Wells either. I think he can control Carlston Harris for 3 rounds and win on the cards. Now, I know Semmelsberger last week lost to Uros Medic, and a lot of people were like, yo, Semmelsberger split decision with Wells. How bad is Wells now after he lost to Medic? Styles make fights. Moments make fights. One day, a fighter looks like this. One day, a fighter looks like that. At the end of the day, consistently, Jeremiah Wells has been a pretty solid performer, and regardless of how close his fight was with Semmelsberger, he still was able to win overcoming adversity. And Carlston Harris doesn't have the boxing chops of a Semmelsberger. I think Jeremiah Wells is going to win this fight by knockout. I think he finds the money punch. Now, I'll bring up the fighters here. This is another one of them. where I'm just going to bring the face-off up between these two. Little bit of a height advantage for Carlston Harris that you see here. Expected. I mean, he's 6 foot to Jeremiah Wells 5'9". Reach is only 2 inches, though. And it's not like Carlston Harris is going to be boxing him up with jabs from the outside. I think he's too sloppy for it. It's not his game. And he's also not overly athletic. I've said this all week. Carlston Harris' striking is herky-jerky. Now, that's going to work in some matchups. But with a guy who has the sleeper button, I think Jeremiah Wells drops the hammer. And I think he's going to chin him. I'm going Wells to win via knockout. Now, as far as the betting odds for the fight here between these two, obviously Wells, slight favorite. So I guess that's not that obvious. But he opened up at minus 210. Harris at plus 100. I like Jeremiah Wells to win a lot in this matchup. I think this stylistic fight favors him. Looking at Wells by KO, it's plus 215. Wells in the first round. Let's see. First round KO plus 525. I like the Wells straight money line side. I'm predicting a KO, but note that in the past, Jeremiah Wells has used a game more based upon control than pure power, and he's won fights doing such a thing. So give me Jeremiah Wells for the win over Carlston Harris. I got him here. Next fight on the card, it's actually the featured prelim of the night. It's Raoni Barcelos versus Kyler Phillips. I've been picking Kyler Phillips all week. I guess an obvious one is the fact that he's 8 years younger than Barcelos, and he also, being Kyler Phillips, just 3 fights ago, beat Song Yadong, who I think is a pretty dangerous force to be reckoned with at 135. Barcelos is potentially slowing down, too. He was knocked out against Umar Nurmagomedov last time out. I think Kyler Phillips is going to be faster on the feet, but this is one of the fights where I thought the scales were a bit important because Barcelos being a bit of an older guy, I wanted to check out the frame, of course, and how he looked on the scale. I'll say something. Barcelos looked low energy. He definitely had a hard cut, still made 135.5, and at 36, I guess that's rather impressive. He doesn't seem to be having weight cutting issues, but it's definitely a strain on him to get down. He looked, fatigued as hell on the scale and still sweating a bit, whereas you look on the other side, Kyler Phillips, pretty solid on the scale. At the end of the day, the actual frames here for the scales is not what I was looking to compare. Barcelos has got a better physique. It's more the fact that Barcelos looked very fatigued on that scale. And I have to say, I think that Barcelos getting knocked out is a possibility in this fight ultimately. Now, let's look at these two facing off. Pretty solid face-off. You can see what I'm saying about Barcelos. He's got some good muscle on the frame. Definitely an older guy with some wear and tear. Phillips is going to be faster. I worry that hair gets in his eyes. That's the biggest concern here. Phillips should pull it off, and I think he's possible for a TKO. I've been riding Phillips by a knockout. I think I'm going to stick with that here. Phillips by KO. He is a big favorite at minus 200. Barcelos plus 170. Barcelos badly knocked out last time against Umar. He's taken a couple of losses. 2 fights before that? He was on a 2-fight losing streak. 36. I'm going Kyler Phillips to stop him. Plus 135 for the under. Phillips by TKO plus 250. I can't say that KO is a lock because Barcelos is not an easy guy to put away. Umar caught him with the perfect shot, bringing in a significant grappling threat in that fight, which you're not going to have here really with Kyler Phillips. So I expect kickboxing. Phillips by decision is almost seeming more likely, but I've been riding knockout. I'm not going to go against it because I think Barcelos' chin could be touched here. Money line is better, though, for Kyler Phillips than anything else. Trying to chase a knockout or what have you, you're better off just going money line. Phillips to get the win over Raoni Barcelos. And let's keep running up. Let's jump to the main card. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash that like button. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. We got Ignacio Bahamondes versus Ľudovít Klein, Mr. Highlight. I like Ignacio Bahamondes to win here. He's got a big length advantage. He's the prospect on the come up at 25, almost 26 now, actually. Good kickboxing skill. Looked poised and patient against Trey Ogden. Maybe too poised and patient, but still clearly won. Ľudovít Klein coming up from 145. I mean, he's a pretty explosive guy and a good athlete, I would say, with a dangerous stand-up game for sure, but giving up a significant amount of height against a guy who has a good kicking-based style from the outside, being Ignacio Bahamondes. I don't like that at all for Ľudovít Klein. I think he's going to get stuck on the outside. He has to look to wrestle here to find success. I expect him to shoot. I think he is going to look to take Bahamondes down, but the resistance for Bahamondes will be there. And 3 rounds of a kickboxing, I don't want to say clinic because that'll mean that there's no moments for there's no moments for Klein. It's all just Bahamondes. I'm going to say Bahamondes beats him. 3-round, unanimous decision. He's a dangerous guy in Bahamondes, but Klein is not an easy guy to put away. He's only 28 years of age. He's in great shape, which you'll see in a second when we bring the fighters up. Let's check these guys out here. Let's bring them up. We just got the face-off for this fight here, but it'll be enough. You'll see the, differences in the size. Little bit towards Ignacio, right? Taller by 5'7" to 6'3". It looks a little less than that. You see what I'm saying, though, about the muscularity of a guy like Ľudovít Klein. He's thick. He's explosive. Bahamondes more slim and lean. I think Bahamondes is going to work his game here against Klein. I do think at 155, though he's 6'3", as young as he is, it works out for him. Only 25 years of age. I think that he can cut that weight, look good for 3 rounds, and beat Ľudovít Klein on the cards. Klein, a dangerous guy still, but I don't think he's beaten Ignacio Bahamondes. So we're riding Ignacio for the W. Minus 228 for Ignacio to Klein at plus 193. Looking towards anything else here. Bahamondes by KO is plus 375. Bahamondes by decision at plus 150. I like Ignacio Bahamondes on the cards, but I'm not telling you guys play the over. Ignacio has kicking danger. I mean, he's on a knockout streak right now. Look at the last 2 of the last 3. KO, submission there. I guess it's not a knockout streak, technically sub in that one, but damn. Then he beat Trey Ogden on the cards. The way he fought Ogden is kind of what I'm expecting here. So we're going to go Bahamondes to beat Ľudovít Klein by a judge's decision. Next fight of the night, we got light heavyweights going after it. Tanner Boser versus Aleksa Camur. I am on the Tanner Boser side as the pick. Camur been out a while, looking to come back. Still relatively young at only 27. Actually, I'd probably say he's a baby at light heavyweight because Glover Teixeira was champ in his 40s. Tanner Boser is still only 32. Now, a lot more miles on the car. He's 20-10-1 as a fighter. But the thing with Tanner Boser is that he has pretty good straights. He's like fairly well-rounded. He lands good right hands. He's got some power. He should be technically better than Aleksa Camur and be able to pull this one off, potentially getting a knockout, but Camur in shape. I'm going to pull up the scales for these two. We'll look at each one of them as they weighed in, because I thought for this matchup here, it was worth noting, because Camur, I got to tell you, he looked good. Full visible six-pack, solid shape. Not an overly muscular guy, but looks like a guy that definitely put in his fucking dues in the gym coming in here, to take a fight against Tanner Boser, who's, at this point, a true veteran of the UFC. There's Tanner Boser, who at 205, yes, he lost his debut, looks in great shape. And I mean, let's not forget that Tanner Boser is attempting to continuously reinvent himself now at 205 after a whole career at heavyweight, and he's only 32. I'm going to pick Boser to win. I think he's a technically better fighter, but I will say I respect Camur a lot for coming in as fucking shredded as he did, looking to beat a guy with a lot of fights in the UFC. Yeah, I like Tanner Boser here. He's potential for a TKO, man. Camur, a guy that can mix it up fairly well, doesn't have a ton of stinging power, and he is quite hittable down the center. And I think Tanner Boser could find a good straight on him, and Camur, overly willing to engage, could get his light shut off. I've been picking Boser by KO, thinking KO or decision officially, but I am going to go Boser to beat Aleksa Camur. Now, as far as the odds, close money, minus 142 for Boser. Camur at plus 122. What's fight enters the second round? Minus 500. That was a decent bet. Fight enters second round if it was like minus 150. I think there's a real chance it goes to the second round. Boser by KO plus 250. We're on the opposite side. Camur's plus 385. two big dudes like this that are going to throw heavies, it's interesting to say that the over 2.5 might be possible, right? Minus 145. Because I'm saying Boser might put it on him with punches, but he's going to really need to land that counter strike. This is my thought process. He hurt Nascimento. He knocked out St. Preux. So the last two, there was moments where, obviously he got a stoppage and then he could have got a stoppage. Ultimately, Cutelaba took him out early. And ultimately, the fight against OSP wasn't OSP, really. It was more the corpse of OSP. So this fight here, betting side, interesting matchup. Crossroads fight. Camur on the come up. Boser looking to hold on to his UFC career at a new weight class, especially, 1-4 in the last 5. I'll say Boser pulls it off. TKO or decision. I feel like I got to just pick one here. I'm picking TKO. I'm riding with it, but decision would not shock me by any means. And I know some people might be on that over. Like, I don't think it's crazy if you're on the over, but I'll say Boser to stop him, which is like, not telling you to bet it, more of just a pick here. Next fight on the card, Gavin Tucker versus Diego Lopes. I think that Diego Lopes is going to beat Gavin Tucker in the first round. I feel like he's going to start really fast and sub him. I don't think Gavin Tucker is going to be ready for the pace after a long time out of the game. 37, dealt with some injuries, knocked out in 22 seconds last time versus Lopes, who looked like a contender on the come-up against Movsar Evloev. Let's do this. Let's pull up the weigh-ins here. Let's get both guys on the screen now. Where's our guys here? All right. Boom, boom, right there. Oh, shit. Boom. Height advantage, Diego Lopes. Reach advantage, Diego Lopes. Youth advantage, Diego Lopes. Momentum in the UFC advantage, Diego Lopes. What happens when the cage door closes? I think Diego Lopes subs him. Club and sub. I'll say something interesting. Gavin Tucker looked like overcome with joy to be there, to be at the fight. He looked like he was, just ecstatic to finally be there. Like, he looked almost emotional, like he was going to cry there. And he was hugging Diego Lopes. Interesting. A very interesting pre-fight. I think Lopes is going to run him over. I don't think Gavin Tucker is going to start fast. I don't know if it's because he said to himself, this is my last fight. Like, you don't know what goes on. Maybe Gavin Tucker's thinking, I'm coming back for one more. This is it, man. This is my final go. We don't know at 37. And if he loses here to Diego Lopes, he could be thinking, if I lose, I'm done. I'm thinking Diego Lopes subs him early. Diego Lopes for the W. Lopes minus 170. Tucker at plus 145. Lopes by sub. I've been saying club and sub. Lopes by sub plus 220. Lopes in the first round plus 275. And then Lopes by sub in round 1 is plus 500. Could he TKO him? Yes. Lopes could put his punches together and hurt Gavin Tucker. I'm thinking he hurts him, but then he follows him to the ground and gets a sub off as opposed to stopping him with the ground and pound. Ultimately, Lopes for the win. The official call. I see him taking out the 37-year-old Gavin Tucker. We got to go with him. Next fight on the card is the featured bout of the night. It's Dustin Jacoby versus Kennedy Nzechukwu. And I've been picking Dustin Jacoby as an underdog throughout the week. I'm saying that he could sting Nzechukwu and potentially put his lights out because we've seen Nzechukwu hurt before and knocked out. I think Dustin Jacoby can find straights on him, avoid the grappling. It seems like everybody feels like Nzechukwu's the boogeyman now after he got a win last time out against Devin Clark. Before that, would he be Cutelaba? Before that, Carl Roberson. So 3 wins in a row, and I respect him getting those 3 wins. Ultimately, Dustin Jacoby is a tricky striking matchup and no guy that just gets walked over. So I'm going to go Dustin Jacoby to TKO him and pull off an upset. Now, common opponents, Ian Cutelaba, also a common opponent, is Jacoby versus Dawoon Jung, because both those guys fought both those guys, and they have split results. Well, one is a draw, being Jacoby with Cutelaba, and then obviously a TKO for Nzechukwu. But Dawoon Jung stopped Nzechukwu in the first round, and don't tell me that Jacoby couldn't sting him with straights and put his lights out. Obviously, Dustin Jacoby, a little bit of a height disadvantage, the shorter guy. He's He's going to be at a reach disadvantage. But Nzechukwu isn't this crisp boxer. He's more of a bullying pressure fighter that employs his will on you, using his massive size. I think Jacoby can find the kill shot. So give me Dustin Jacoby to get a TKO in the second or third round. Now, looking at the betting odds for the fight, Jacoby's plus 140-ish as a dog to Nzechukwu around minus 157. And then looking at Jacoby to win by TKO is plus 375. Jacoby by second round KO plus 1,400. I think this is possible, man. 1,400 there plus 1,800 for the third. I'm thinking he finds the chin in the second round. So give me Dustin Jacoby for a knockout. You can go psycho and try to snipe it with the round prop. You can go a little bit crazy and throw down on the KO. Or you could throw on a dog who has a chance to win here in Dustin Jacoby and say he gets it done. Just money line it. Now, yeah, he's coming off a loss being Jacoby to Osmat. That's a fair loss to take. Prior to that, he beat Khalil Roundtree. So Jacoby was on a huge win streak before their unbeaten streak because of the draw with Kutelaba. Now kind of being looked at as a stepping stone for Nzechukwu. I just don't believe it. So I'm going Jacoby for the win. Next fight on the card, it's Jéssica Andrade versus Tatiana Suarez. It's our co-main event. I'm picking Tatiana Suarez to beat Jéssica Andrade. I think it's going to be grappling. I think her getting the fight to the floor is where she's going to shine. She's been the boogie woman for a long time. Never getting her fair shake, man. Injuries fucking held her career back. But when she goes to the floor, she has a big edge on Jéssica Andrade. Expect chain wrestling early, clinch control, eventually finding the back and strangle. So Suarez by sub, the official prediction. Andrade also coming in with 2 losses in a row where she's looked a little bit dejected in those fights. That wasn't the best out of Andrade, but I have to question her mental, especially dropping to 115 after she looked like a straight killer at 25. There's Jéssica Andrade on the scale. Looks in pretty solid shape. I mean, she doesn't seem dejected or anything, but she didn't in previous weigh-ins either. There's Tatiana Suarez, who comes in solid shape. She can't wait to get her big chance. She can't wait for it. Because if she wins this fight, she's probably the number 1 contender, or at least damn close to it. Then there's the face-off between these two. You know, for what the height list versus the reality, Andrade looks about 5'3" to Suarez's 5'5", and she looks pretty intense and lean. Suarez just got to take this fight to the floor. But that's easier said than done. Andrade on the feet will have an edge, and she does have punching power. So ultimately, we'll learn a lot about Suarez's toughness in this matchup as well. I do think she's going to find the takedowns and control on the mat and work towards a submission. Kind of see it in the second round. It could be a chain wrestle 3 rounds for Suarez too. But either way, I am going to go Tatiana Suarez to win. Minus 410 for Suarez to Andrade at plus 310. Andrade is a huge underdog. Opened at plus 500. Holy shit. The line, at the end of the day, for what Jéssica Andrade has done in the sport, the line is a little bit iffy, right? Seeing her as that big of a dog. So I know some people are going to be like, yo, I'm throwing down on Andrade's dog. Let me risk it all. She's got the stinging power to put out any woman at 115. I do think Suarez's style is just really hard for Jéssica Andrade to deal with. And then counter on top of the fact that maybe Andrade is not in the same space mentally as she once was. If she wouldn't have lost her last 2 fights, though, isn't that interesting? Let's say she hadn't fought since she took on Lauren Murphy and then they booked this fight. Andrade would be looking at a minus 200 favorite tag probably. So that's really interesting, too, to think about. I'm saying Suarez is winning. I'll tell you this. Make sure that you just set aside at least a couple parlays for you guys betting on it without Tatiana Suarez on the off chance something bad happens. Just because, I don't know, I feel this slight hunch that Andrade is being completely slept on by everybody, including myself, until right now. So I just want to give you guys a fair warning. Maybe save one without Suarez. Save one without her. Do a little crossover. We'll throw parlays up at the end, and then we'll discuss. But yeah, I'm going to pick Suarez to win, and I do think she pulls it off by submission. Main event of the evening. If you guys haven't yet, make sure you smash that like button. And if you're new to the channel, subscribe. It's Cory Sandhagen versus Rob Font throwing down in Nashville, Tennessee. I'm picking Cory Sandhagen to win. I've picked him since the fight was announced, and I even dropped a news reaction on the channel about it. Hey, you guys should be watching those news reactions more often, so make sure you guys keep your eyes peeled for those. But either way, Cory Sandhagen to win this fight is more based upon a wider range of tools. He looks like an absolute sharpened sword right now. He looks like that guy. Cory Sandhagen has also added in the wrinkles in the wrestling. I think that he outpaces, outstrikes, outworks a Rob Font. Font's got damn good boxing. Font in pure boxing has the edge. But there's so many weapons at the disposal of Cory Sandhagen, and now add in a takedown threat. Rob Font's going to have a lot to deal with in this fight, and I think Sandhagen takes him over the 5 rounds. So give me Sandhagen for the win on the judges' scorecards. We will bring up the scales, though, for everybody. We'll look at these savages as they weighed in. We'll first look at Cory Sandhagen, who essentially now is like defending the #1 contender throne. There he is. Solid look for Sandhagen. Typical look. Don't expect him to look like he's stepping on a Mr. Olympia stage. Rob Font, he looks pretty sick, actually. Chiseled up. Came in on short notice. Obviously, he was still supposed to fight in a couple weeks, so he was in shape. Beard lined up. They do it at 140. Rob Font looks good. I got to give credit where it's due. He looks ready to come to fight and win. Like, he's not coming to lose. And I anticipate a hard fight going long between these two. And then now we're going to bring up the face-off. You can see Sandhagen a little bit taller. Reach actually favors Font. This is a real interesting fight. I'm saying Sandhagen gets more rounds and pulls it off on the judges' scorecards. Man, Font wants nothing more to this shit in the fucking UFC's plans of a Sandhagen potential, title fight later this year or into 2024. Could he do it? If he lands the big shots, he's got power, but Sandhagen is just so precise with his kickboxing. He's got every weapon in the book and adding in some grappling. I got to go Sandhagen by decision in a pretty damn good fight. I'm excited for it. Let's bring up the odds here. Minus 350 for Cory Sandhagen. Rob Font, plus 285. Give me Sandhagen for the W. Let's see here. Sandhagen to win by decision. What is that line? Plus 160. So, it's all right. Waiting a lot of rounds for that shit to hit. Over 4.5, minus 105. I do think they're both violent dudes, but they probably go all 5 due to the competitive level of this fight here. So give me Sandhagen to win it on the judges' scorecards and take Rob Font in the main event. I do want to jump to the parlays, the post-weigh-in parlays I love, because we saw everything, how the fighters looked, and then you can get, some vibes and base everything upon how you're feeling the fights are going to go more than just, the tape. You also bring in a little bit of intuition. All right, so let's see here. What can we mix and match, man? I think Diego Lopes with Ignacio Bahamondes is actually a cool play at plus 134. But if you don't want Bahamondes, I get it. You could leave him out. You go Diego Lopes, Sandhagen at the top, plus 109. Now, ultimately, I bet on Suarez, and I've talked about this parlay. Suarez, Sandhagen, minus 153. Should hit, right? Should hit. But I had to warn just after, feeling an odd vibe from Andrade. She was coming to kill this time. Lopes, plus 165. Sandhagen, Suarez, Lopes. Solid little trifecta. Now, if you want to go some main card savagery and throw dog Dustin Jacoby in, now you're in the plus 500 range. If you add in Ignacio, you're trying to sweep it all, plus 807. Be cautious doing that. But at the end of the day, it's big plus money. 2 or 3 fighters max for your most likelihood of success. Jeremiah Wells, Dennis Buzukja, that northern parlay for these up north folk. Ode Osbourne now, plus 1262. Leave one without Osbourne. Maybe you don't even want to play Buzukja either. You go here and you touch the over in this fight. What if it does go long? Plus 116 concerns me. I'm thinking Billy Q by decision or TKO, man. Plus 304. It's riskier, though. That's riskier territory. Jeremiah Wells. Then mix them in with Kyler Phillips to add some versatility. But Ignacio Bahamondes, Jeremiah Wells, the parlay that I had written down. Adding in Diego Lopes, plus 337. That's the thing with the post-weigh-in show. I try to go a little off the cuff, because I'm trying to see what I felt throughout this whole show with the weigh-ins, compared to what I originally wrote down. Sandhagen, then we go Suarez, then we go Jacoby. Now we're going big plus money. Now we're looking at something that could really fucking rile the boat. Now we're looking to fucking rock the ship. I'm trying to rock the ship over here. Give me Durden. Give me moneyline Durden. Plus 4,000. Don't want him. I think this one's going over. Plus 3,000 there. The over 2.5 could be sneaky in the Durden fight. Osbourne. Now we're going crazy, man. I'm just finishing it out. It is what it is. I'm going mental with this. This is mental. Don't do that. Listen, 2-3 fighter max for your maximum likelihood of success. All week, I've been saying the one that I really be liking is running with, Sandhagen and Suarez, or Sandhagen, Bahamondes, Suarez. Post weigh-in, my confidence on Lopes has jumped a bit. I think Jacoby's a great underdog on the main card. And then obviously Ode Osbourne, underdog lock to start through the week. Almabaev's in good shape. I recognize a dog fight when I see one, but I do think Osbourne can edge it out in a pretty fucking, rumble back and forth. I'm still riding with my guy Osbourne to win it. Some solid bets you can place, guys, on this card, but just be cautious with it. Don't go too crazy with the betting side. Be intelligent, be cautious, bet responsibly. Take what I say, right? And then do your own research and see if we line up on things. Don't just bet blindly on the fight game, because that'll burn you in the end. All right, guys, I do want to jump to, though, Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz. I said that I'm going to add this in. I'm going to do a little special edition Paul versus Diaz prediction, because I know some people are curious. And honestly, I had to talk about it because it's a spectacle in combat sport, okay? Nate Diaz making his boxing debut. He just beat Tony Ferguson. He subbed him, which is now less impressive since Bobby Green did it. But no, not really. I mean, Nate Diaz did his thing in that fight. On the opposite side, Jake Paul just lost against Tommy Fury in a boxing match that went long. He has big power being Jake Paul. But now he's in a fight with Nate Diaz, who can bring it into the deep waters because we got 10 rounds. Nate Diaz, 7, 8, 9, and 10 is much more alive than anything, specifically 8, 9, and 10. Nate Diaz is so dangerous here. I could see Jake Paul getting frustrated with jabs throughout this fight, landing big shots, but Nate rolling with them well. Paul fatiguing. Listen, I have to go with MMA. I have to go with UFC. I have to go with the royalty. I have to go Nate Diaz. I'm going to say that he gets a 9th round TKO. And there's been times where I've predicted Jake Paul would win his fights. There's been times I've predicted he would lose his fights. This one here is against a real OG and Nate Diaz. But what swayed me to pick Diaz is not the fact that there's anything I can say boxing-wise that maybe he's just dialed into boxing better than Jake Paul. Jake Paul's all boxing at this point. But Nate Diaz is a tricky style. He's a southpaw. Jake Paul's best punch tends to be that overhand right. It is much harder to land an overhand right on a long southpaw especially than on any other position, right? If we can do it maybe against the ropes, backing a Diaz up. But I think Diaz's chin holds up. I think he pops Jake Paul with some jabs to the face. I think we end up getting into the later stages. And I think that Nate Diaz, 9th round, I'm saying he has like a Leon Edwards moment. He's good at these huge moments. He catches him with the perfect straight left. I'm not saying he goes out from one. He gets rocked. He gets followed up with shots. Maybe he goes down. Paul gets up. Nate Diaz all over him. Maybe the refs stop in. We don't know how they're going to play it, because with the Jake Paul promotion, obviously they want to see him pull it off. Hopefully it's not like Nate gets hit with one punch, hits the canvas, and then the ref just jumps in and calls it. Hopefully we don't get one of those weird early stoppages, which are quite possible with the Paul promotion. I got to go Diaz. Let's rile the fucking ship. Listen, I want to bring up the face-off between these two, the spectacle here between Jake Paul and Nate Diaz. Nate Diaz said, no matter what happens after the fight, you're still not a real fighter, because he was saying Jake Paul couldn't defend the choke. But yeah, they're in each other's grill. They're smack talking. There hasn't been a crazy amount of promo throughout for Nate Diaz, but it's here now. And during the week, he's been on a lot of podcasts. He's selling the fight. Yeah, he don't have no shredded six-pack. At the end of the day, Jake Paul and him face-to-face make you think, damn, Nate Diaz is a big dude. He's bigger than we anticipate. He's a tall motherfucker, and he's long. He's got longer arms than Jake Paul, regardless of what you see with reach. Arm length is not the same as wingspan this way because of the shoulders. So at the end of the day, I think that Nate Diaz, to pull it off, is the side that I have to ride on. I don't have the odds on screen, but now I got to pull the odds. I guess technically I have the odds on screen because they have the odds on Tapology, but I never trust Tapology for odds. So we're pulling up pro boxing odds. I got it on my phone here. We're going to just look at it. Off the cuff, man. Let's go. Let's see if we can get it loaded in. Jake Paul, minus 460 as the favorite. Nate Diaz, plus 320 dog. Nate Diaz is worth a dog snipe, bro. Nate Diaz is worth a dog snipe. Let's see. Nate Diaz to win in round 9, plus 7,000. Can you imagine you ran that up? Diaz wins in 9-10, plus 2,800. Diaz wins in 7-8, plus 1,700. But plus 7,000 for round 9. Diaz, just to get a TKO, is plus 600 or a DQ. That's interesting. TKO or DQ, plus 600? I like a big plus 320 tag. Nate Diaz. Give me the Diaz side. I'm picking him to beat Jake Paul. I'm going to be live for this fight too. We're going to see how the UFC schedule lines up with the Jake Paul Nate Diaz fight because I'm a big Nate Diaz fan. I don't want to miss him even if he's doing boxing. So I am planning on getting the pay-per-view set up. So we'll see on the live stream what I have to do depending upon where we're at with the UFC Fight Companion. Either way, what a blast of a weekend we have in store. Tomorrow, the fight's bringing the heat, or maybe you're watching this today, so shit, you're excited as hell. You're probably just hours out until the fights for some of you. Make sure you guys smash the likes. If you're new to the channel, subscribe and turn the post notifications on too. Definitely let me know in the comments what you think of the picks. What do you think of the Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz fight? Am I crazy for thinking that Nate Diaz can upset Jake Paul? He's got a damn good gas tank. We know he's more dangerous in the later stages, and Paul's never been to those deep waters. So I'm going Diaz to drown him, especially as a dog. Much love, my people. I appreciate you all. Let me know what you think in the comments. Drop a W in those comments, too, to boost the algorithm for your boy. I appreciate everybody watching. Keep your eyes peeled for content every day. Obviously, I'll be live for the full UFC Nashville card and the Jake Paul versus Nate Diaz fight thereafter. So keep it locked on the channel. Peace, guys. And I'll see you all in the next one.